Well, today we get back onto the Following the Call series, and if you're new to us, this is a year-long series we're doing based on the Sermon on the Mount of Jesus with the help of a range of really great essays found in this book, Following the Call. The people who contribute to this book come across centuries from different theological perspectives, and today there's just some really rich stuff. The way I'm dressed is part of my shtick, you may have guessed today, and I hope you will recognize that I'm dressed like a nurse, and when you see this, you will remember, oh yeah, Pete was dressed like a nurse, and that will help you remember some of the things that we're going to get to today. So today we're talking about something that's really crazy how the timing worked out here, because we're talking about this subject in week 21 and chapter 21, of non-resistance. Non-resistance, which seems like an odd thing to be talking about on Memorial Day when we are in a very direct way, we are celebrating resistance. Resistance to the threat of evil in our world. And some of those great evils, we think about Hitler, we think about Tojo's Japan, we think about Vietnam, we think about Korea, we think about World War I, we think about our own Civil War, evils in different kinds that we have faced. And so when we hear Jesus say this, this becomes problematic, and we immediately have a bit of angst. He said, "You have heard the law that says the punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say, do not resist an evil person." I'm sure that if I could see little thought bubbles over your head, I would see a range of reactions to Jesus' statement here. Now, let me unpack a couple things because I think that might help. First of all, we just recognize that Jesus starts this thing off with saying, you have heard the law that says, and he finishes the blank. And we remember that in the Sermon on the Mount, there are a number of statements like this, where he is saying, you've heard the law and you've heard it said that this is so. And then he gives us something like this, but I say, and then he fills in the blank. We need to remember that he is bringing a different lens to current thought. Some of that thought had been around for a long time. And every time he's saying this stuff, he's ticking some pastor off somewhere. He's ticking off the religious authorities in Jerusalem because when he's saying, but I'm telling you a new thing, it's challenging their interpretation. You see what I'm saying? And so first, that's the context we need to know, that he's trying to say something new here. And the thing that he's saying something new about is actually very old. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. This shows up in the Older Testament. And Judaism does not own this phrase or this idea. The idea shows up in other cultures and other legal documents. And the idea is simply this, that if somebody harms you, the idea of reciprocal retribution seems to be appropriate. But this law was put into place not to encourage people to get themselves an eye if their eye was taken out. It was to make sure that nobody went further than an eye for an eye. It was meant to be a governor on our retribution, because apparently we human beings like to go too far. We've been wounded, we wound back harder. They hit back harder yet, we hit back harder still. That's the idea. And so then it's within that whole context. So Jesus is challenging a way to think, and probably for all the people that would read this, they would think, well, if I resist an evil person who just hurt me, I have every legal right to hit back with equal force. But it's to that Jesus says, but I say, do not resist an evil person. Now, you need to know that right after Jesus says, do not resist an evil person, he's going to spend the next several verses teaching people how to resist in nonviolent ways. So we take a deep breath. There must be something else here that we're supposed to take away, and there is. In the next few weeks, we're going to be reminded of these tactics that Jesus used as one who was powerless in a culture in a time when the Roman Empire ruled harshly over the people of Israel in their own country, where they had no rights, no capacity, no weaponry that could come anywhere near the Roman Empire. And he's going to teach them, in the face of the evils that you see in the Roman Empire, let me tell you how you can exact change. Let me tell you how you can do something that will be effective, because if you resist the evil person, given the context we're in, it is going to mean bad things for you. This is actually just a very practical statement. In our country right now, we are wondering if the rights that are afforded us in our Constitution, particularly to due process, if they really are going to be maintained deep into the future, or if it's only going to be select people who have the right to a fair process. That's a wonderful thing about our democracy and our Constitution. Well, in Jesus' day, there was no such Constitution. There were no rights. If a Roman soldier came up to him and didn't like the way he was looking at him, or thought he heard some attitude in whatever he said, he had every right to go punch Jesus right in the nose. And for all we know, that may have happened many times. We don't know. Because there was no reason for any Roman soldier to treat any Jewish person in Israel with any respect, really, except for maybe to keep the peace. But we know, through the verses that we're going to see coming up, that they were harsh toward the people, to keep them under wraps, to make sure they didn't get out of hand. If you have no rights, if you have no capacity to defend yourself, no legal course of action, and a Roman soldier comes and abuses you in some way, punches you in the nose, pushes you down, your Jewish heritage and law is saying, eye for an eye, man, eye for an eye, and here you go. But what's going to happen if you do that to a Roman soldier? You're gone, man. You are gone. You're either going to get beaten to a pulp, you're going to be thrown in jail, killed. They don't care. Jesus' response in this very specific context is, the dumbest thing you could do when you are under the thumb of a superpower who doesn't give a rip about you and has all the machinery and weaponry and you have none, the stupidest thing you can do is eye for an eye, because you're going to lose a lot more than your eye. Wake up. So let that give you some peace. Context always makes a difference, and it certainly makes a difference now. So this idea of proportional retribution seems to need the nuance of contextualization. That there are times when a forceful resistance to evil is a bad idea. In fact, we have a hard time with this because we have these things called lizard brains in us, deeply wired within us, that sometimes motivate our action and behavior in our reactions. You've probably heard of most of these, maybe all four of them. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You familiar with these? Fight is you just simply fight back. Flight is you flee from the danger of whatever's happening to you. Freeze means, we'll talk more about this, but freeze means you freeze. You're overwhelmed, your brain is flooded with cortisol or whatever, and you're just stuck. You can't do anything. You can barely organize your thoughts because it's so overwhelming. And fawning, that was a new one to me when that one showed up. Fawn means, and particularly we see this in abusive environments, where the abuser continues to abuse the victim, and the victim just is trying to do anything to assuage the abuse. So they fawn all over the abuser. I'll do anything you want. I'll do anything. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did. I'll do anything. I'll make you dinner. I'll clean up. I'll do better next time. I'll do anything. That's fawning over the person. You're wonderful. You haven't done anything wrong. It's all my fault. All these things. You get it? And as I've been thinking about these things, I think I've done all four of those over my life. And I wonder if you have too. A couple stories here about well, mostly me fleeing from danger. But there was a story, this came to mind this week, when I was in middle school at Ottawa, Kansas Middle School. We were having a gym class, and I was a sixth grader, and me and my friend Stephen were shadow boxing. Now, Stephen, I was a big kid. I was I was about 6 foot tall in sixth grade, so I was a big kid, right? I was not normal looking sixth grader, and Stephen was more of a normal sixth grader. So he was maybe, 2/3 my size or something, and he was super fast. He was the fastest guy in class for sure. This guy could fly. It was amazing. We played football together. He was an amazing running back because he was so quick, and I was on the line because I was so big for that time. And it was a good time. Well, anyway, he and I are shadow boxing. But also, you need to know, not only was he fast, but the girls thought he was really good looking. And they all wanted to be his girlfriend. That detail has no bearing on the story. I just thought you'd be interested to know as you craft this in your mind. And so he and I are shadow boxing. You know what that is? You're just kind of having a boxing match, and you're not hitting each other. Well, sometimes I get a little off in my range, and I stepped in and I did a shadow box to clock him, and I actually clocked him right in the face. And I felt terrible. I was shocked. He was shocked. And I found out immediately he was not amused. And so he came after me, and you know what I did? I took off. I ran all over that gym, up and down the bleachers, all around the gym. Everybody's watching what's happening, and the miracle is I outran Stephen. The lizard brain helped me out, man. The chemicals kicked in, superhuman speed. It was incredible. Well, time went on. He gave up the chase. And we're lining up to go back to our class. It's been like 15 minutes or so, and I'm feeling bad. I'm worried. I feel awful about what happened. I certainly didn't mean to do it. He's my friend. I wouldn't do that. And so anyway, he comes kind of slowly walking up with a couple friends, and I just say it again. I say, hey, Steve, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to hit you in the face. And he comes and says, that's all right, man. And he immediately clocks me in the face. And after that, I was like, okay, are we even? And he really didn't want it to be even, but he said, all right, we're even. That's kind of normal eye for an eye stuff. When the threat was there for me, I just fled. Now, I had another experience maybe 20 years ago where we had extended family up on Lake Tahoe. Kings Beach, anybody ever been up to Kings Beach? It's on the north side of the lake. And there was a hotel right there, way overpriced for really kind of well-dated accommodations, but they got whatever they wanted because you had this incredible view across the lake of heavenly in the distance, magnificent. And so Lynn's family, a lot of them were there with us, and I remember one time I was having conversation with Lynn's sister Jenny and her husband Bill in the water, and they're like maybe knee-high or something. We're just talking about whatever, and there's some, sand toys scattered here, a bucket, that you'd make a sand castle with, and I just very slowly grabbed that sand bucket. It was about that big, maybe a couple gallons or something like that, and was just kind of rinsing it out really carefully as we continued talking. Then I filled it with water, and I immediately doused my poor brother-in-law, who was completely unsuspecting, and I nailed him perfectly. This was completely intentional, by the way. In case you missed that, this was not an absence of judgment. And what happened? Bill immediately came after me. And guess what happened again? Superhuman speed. It worked out great. He could not catch me, even though he was in better shape than I am. So I found safety in one place that I knew he wouldn't dare throw water at me. Right behind our mother-in-law. And I was safe. Gratefully, to this day anyway, it could always come back to bite me, he did not choose to exercise his Old Testament right of eye for an eye. And he did not yet douse me with water. I'm wondering, can you identify, times in your life when you've exercised fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? Fighting, I'm not a violent guy at all, but I've gotten into shouting matches before, and they never go well. It always ends up boiling down, and eventually, hopefully, you both apologize for things you wish you could take back. I've definitely run from things before. Just gave you 2 stories of that. I've frozen before. Usually for me, it's emotional freezing. If somebody's coming at me with an argument or something like this, especially if I'm depleted in some way, stress or whatnot, the abundance of stuff that I'm having to deal with cognitively, it's like I don't know where to begin, and so I freeze. Emotionally, my brain has shut down, and I can't articulate myself well, which is really weird for me, because I talk all the time. Not that this happens every time. Only on Tuesdays does this happen. I'm kidding. And the fawning, I think I've probably done this too over the course of my life. How many of you have done at least one of these things? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? How many of you done two? Keep your hands up. How many of you are three? How many of you overachievers have done all four? All right, good for you. So we know this is a normal thing for us to do, and that means that when it comes to non-resistance, our lizard brains are in our way. They're helpful, right? The lizard brain helps us because sometimes we need to do one of these things. Sometimes we do. By the way, anytime we have this kind of conversation, at least as a pastor and a small group or praxis will probably come up, immediately people go to the worst situations. About, not standing up to a violent person. They're like, oh yeah, what about Hitler? You telling me you can't stand up to Hitler? Or what about a rapist? Are you kidding me about a rapist? Or what if somebody breaks into your home and they're going to kill your family? Are you telling me you're not going to stand up to that? All regular occurrences for all of us, right? We're not talking about that. Self-defense is not that. What we're talking about on the regular course of your day, how are we behaving and recognizing that already we know that sometimes helpful lizard brain helps us, but sometimes it restricts us from being able to respond in more thoughtful ways. I already talked about context with power dynamics in Jesus, but now I'd like to just touch briefly on predispositions, preferences, and paradigms. I was thinking this week, maybe I could do a movie clip, showing nonviolence. So I started to think of all the movies, that there have been in our culture on nonviolence or non-resistance. There are so very few. And immediately I thought of Gandhi, because that one gets there. Malcolm X gets there. Certainly some of the movies about Martin Luther King are there. I even Googled it. Give me, a long list of movies about nonviolence or non-resistance. There's hardly anything. Some documentaries, not many blockbusters. But now I want you to think about what are movies that celebrate victory over evil, often using violence. You know what? We could go around the room and I bet we could spend half an hour thinking about all the films that celebrate it. The Avengers series, I love the Avengers. Love it. Lots of violence, overcoming the evil oppressor. I love the Star Wars series. Lots of violence, overcoming the evil oppressor. I like Star Trek, same thing. I like Superman. I like all the Marvel stuff. So all of these things, I enjoy it, but that also means that it's informing me. It's informing the way I think and what I celebrate, and also what I dream of. So that naturally, because of all the forces in our culture, when I think about somebody who's done something terrible, it is very normal and natural and culturally supported for me to think eye for an eye. How are they going to get theirs, even if it means a form of violence? That's our culture. As you know, we are the world's leading economic and military superpower. And we celebrate both. Now, you need to know the data on this. The spending on military in our country dwarfs our second and third closest competitor. I mean, dwarfs. That's why we have the superpower that we do in terms of military. I mean, it is so far, the chasm is so far, it's crazy. That speaks into our culture, speaks into us. And I know the argument, well, strong defense is going to make sure we can keep peace and for our shores and beyond and all that. I understand that. And I'm not trying to argue that or do anything with that except to say that it's a part of our culture. I remember in northern Michigan where my parents have a family cottage. Every year during Traverse City, Michigan's Cherry Festival, the Blue Angels would come. Anybody seen the Blue Angels or Thunderbirds? It's incredible, right? I mean, the precision with which they can fly is unbelievable, and the roar of the jets and the power that they exhibit is extraordinary. But do we realize that the jets that they're flying, for all the, hundreds of millions that they cost, do you remember what they're designed for? They are to exact violence. They are weapons of death. They are instruments of killing. And we draw in great crowds. And we celebrate and ooh and ah over these things. Again, especially on this Memorial Day weekend, I'm not messing with the whole thing. And yes, we need to honor our veterans because they died tragically, because all war is avoidable. But what I do want us to just really think about is how violent retribution runs courses through our veins. It has shaped our eyes. It is the primary way our culture thinks. On the political spectrum, it's not loving kindness that's being awarded to either side of the aisle. It's who can tear down the other the most, the fastest. This is our culture, and it has formed you and me. Well, there's some wise people who've had some things to say about this, and I want to talk about first Giovanni Papini. Everybody remember Giovanni Papini? Really? Ann, you remember Giovanni Papini? That's disturbing in some ways. And and John, I would honestly, John's an avid reader. You didn't? Somebody raised their hand. But you did. Okay, Ellie, very good. Giovanni Papini would probably be lost to antiquity. He was an author, a university professor in Italy. And probably the reason why he's not regarded a lot is because in his early years, he was a big fan and proponent of fascism and really lifted up Mussolini. So why would we remember anything he had to say? Because he didn't stay there. For the latter part of his life, he found himself in the company of Franciscans, learning the Franciscan way of thinking, which is about love, fellow respect for all of God's creatures. This is what he had to say. The fact that someone has wronged me cannot force me to act wrongly. To answer blows with blows, evil deeds with evil deeds is to meet the attacker on his own ground, to proclaim oneself as low as he. To answer with flight is to humiliate oneself before him and incite him to continue. To answer a furiously angry man with reasonable words is useless effort. Boy, don't we know that in the last 10 years in our country. And the political divide and conversation, you're trying to offer your reasonable argument in the voice of great anger. It's a waste of time. But he goes on, but to answer with a simple gesture of acceptance, to endure for 3 days the bore who inflicts himself on you for an hour, to offer your chest to the person who has struck you on the shoulder, to give 1,000 to the man who's stolen 100 from you, these are acts of heroic excellence, supine though they may appear, so extraordinary that they will overcome the brutal bully with the irresistible majesty of the divine. Then he concludes, only he who has conquered himself can conquer his enemies. Only the saints can charm wolves to mildness. This is a reference to St. Francis. The folk tale is that in a nearby village of St. Francis, there was a wolf that would terrify the villagers, and they called St. Francis in to see if he could do anything. And Francis calmed it down. Francis was, at least in the folk tale, known for talking to animals and was able to talk down this wolf. And so that's where this comes from. This is the proof of the Franciscan influence. Only the saints can charm wolves to mildness. Only he who has transformed his own soul can transform the souls of his brothers and transform the world into a less grievous place for all. You've probably heard of Fyodor Dostoevsky. He offers, at some thoughts one stands perplexed, especially at the sight of men's sin, and wonders whether one should use force or humble love. Always decide to use humble love. If you resolve on that once and for all, you may subdue the whole world. Loving humility is marvelously strong and strongest of all things, and there is nothing else like it. And finally, our own, in the United States, African-American mystic Howard Thurman writes, "No one ever wins a fight." This suggests that there is always some other way. Or does it mean that man can always choose the weapons he shall use? Not to fight at all is to choose a weapon by which one's fight. Perhaps the authentic moral stature of a man is determined by his choice of weapons which he uses in his fight against the adversary. Of all weapons, love is the most deadly and devastating, and few there be who dare trust their fate in its hands. Why few there be? Because of all those influences that channel us and funnel us into violent behavior. That is the air that we breathe in our country. That is the normative thing in our culture. It is something to work against. That and our own lizard brains, which takes us away. So I started wondering, well, what is our hope then? And I think our hope in terms of being more non-resistant or non-violently resistant, as we'll learn about, have a lot more to do with our dreams and desire and direction rather than simply our strategies. Peter Drucker, who is a leadership guru, he said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." We can plan our way and think through all the ways we're going to be nonviolent or nonviolent resistance or non-resistant at all. But when the moment comes, lizard brain in our culture will win. So it has to be something deeper than that. And I think it has to do with the dreams that we nurse. What dreams and desires do we nurse? This is where I'm going to get in your business a little bit, and you're not going to like it. Because every one of us has learned the fine art of nursing grudges. We're really good at it. We think back to those people who have wounded us, people very near and dear to us, family members, parents, loved ones, siblings, close friends, even people that we're only casually in relationship with, coworkers, school, fellow students, and sometimes even people on Facebook that we'll never meet have offended us so deeply. Sometimes it's just a political person who shows up on our TV and we find that offensive. We have all kinds of reasons to be offended, don't we? And when they offend us and wound us in whatever way, whatever level, we are pretty darn good at keeping that alive, of remembering the pain that they caused. And it does something for us. It empowers us. We're kind of addicted to it. Because when we can feel moral superiority over someone because they wronged us and we know it, whether or not they know it, but we know it, that makes us feel pretty good about ourselves. Look at us. I've got that on that person for a long time. And instead of healing from that wound, it's easier and sometimes more fun and more rewarding, at least in the short term, to just keep it nursed along. I'm just wondering, have any of you ever nursed a grudge? I'm the only one. Okay, very good. All hands should be in the air because this is a human reality. What I'm suggesting to you is maybe there's another alternative to nurse. And maybe when we nurse something different, we're going to see different results. And I speak from experience. I'm a human being, and there have been people who wounded me over the course of my life, great and small ways. There have been a couple whoppers over my life that have been hard to get over, hard to even realize, that it's happened, hard to metabolize, easier to nurse. And I remember I was invited to be a part of a conference here at Napa College many years ago. And it was a kind of an ecumenical thing, multi-faiths represented, and I was presenting on something. I was the only Christian presenter, and I was presenting on some Christian thing. And so it freed me up during my non-workshop time slot to go check out some other things. And so I was curious about, how different traditions were approaching meditation. And so I went to a Buddhist workshop, and then I went to a Sufi Muslim workshop. And both of them had to do with the same thing. The Buddhist side was on the loving kindness meditation, which is very popular, very well known. Dave has led us many times in loving kindness. That's the one where we first receive loving kindness, then we wish loving kindness for those that we love, and then those that we like, and then those that we kind of like, and then even those that we can't stand, we offer loving kindness to. And there is a healing, a softening that happens in us when we do that. That was really powerful for me. But the one that really knocked my socks off, which was very much related to that, was from the Sufi Muslim teachers. And they were talking about forgiveness. And they had us go through, they led us through an exercise. Sufi Muslims are the mystics of the Muslim world, and they live in this area, and they've got incredible poetry and great insight. So they had us imagine somebody who has caused us great harm. And I had a number one on my list. And so I envision this person, and they invite us to just be honest about what we're feeling and all that. And they led us through a process of first differentiating the person, the human being, from the behavior which they evidenced. In other words, the person was not the pain that inflicted, but they were actually a human being. And once we determined that they were an actual human being, they moved us through a process that took me deeper and deeper toward forgiveness. And there was one shift in there where they actually had us in our mind, visioning this person right in front of us and saying to them, "I forgive you." I remember taking a deep breath on that. But I did it. But the leader wasn't over. Because the leader took it one more step. They said, "Now I want you to look into that person's eyes in your imagination and say, 'I wish you well.'" And I did it. And years had gone by where I was struggling in my unforgiveness for what this person did to me in my life. That was the first time that I felt significant relief. It wasn't the end. That's not how we work as human beings. It's a process. There were multiple times I had to continue working with this idea, the same principles that Sufi Muslim taught me that day. But now I'm at a place where I genuinely wish that person well. And I don't hold the grudge or nurse the grudge anymore. Some of us, we hear this and we're like, "Oh, Pastor Pete, if you knew what I was going through, you would not ask me to do this." And I want to tell you, if that's where you're sitting and feeling, to exercise this kind of dream of shalom or dream of love for somebody who victimized you is not in any way to excuse their behavior at all. It is not a way to open the door for the abuser to come back into your life. As it has been said many times, when we forgive, we set a prisoner free. But it's not the person we're forgiving that we set free. It's ourselves. We become free. mean, think about it. Some of you may have stuff you've been nursing in your head, an evil that happened to you from a person who's been dead for decades. Guess how they think about you right now? They're gone. Their brain's not working anymore. And yet you're carrying it around. They still have the power over you. What Jesus is saying in his teaching on forgiveness, and this certainly fits in with our dream, is there is a way to freedom where they no longer control you in that way. Richard Rohr, in his book, Everything Belongs, he has a chapter that he talks about this, and it was also powerful in my life, where in the course of his writing, he was talking about nursing grudges and holding things over people. And as I was reading that, I was realizing that I was holding something over someone who wronged me. I was still feeling the pain. And I read the words that Richard Rohr was saying that says, we do it because it gives us moral power over them. It empowers us. It makes us superior to them. And that's not good. It's not healing. It's not helpful. And I remember in the moment, as soon as I had this aha moment of, oh my gosh, he's right, and I let it go, it really was let go. It blew my mind. What was happening there? In both instances, with the Sufi Muslim meditation and with Richard Rohr in his writing, I was being invited to shalom. I was being invited to nurse shalom in my dreams and in my life. Do I really want shalom for everybody? For those people that you cannot stand, and they may be people who absolutely do not know your name, people who show up on TV and say crazy things, or people who have hurt you very much. When you are saying shalom to them, you're not saying, please God, help them be jerks for the rest of their life. Keep them in their violence. That is not what you're stating. When you are saying God bless them, you're not saying God bless them in order to remain violent. You are asking that the very Spirit of God, which is all about healing, do its work in them. That they are no longer reacting in violent ways that are counter to shalom. You're not letting anybody off the hook so you can feel free in offering and wishing shalom for anybody. Because at the end of the day, we are on someone's list. And we would hope that when they view and think about us in that Sufi meditation moment, that they would have eyes of grace. When we do horrible things to each other and to ourselves, Richard Rohr says that we are living unconsciously. We are not determining our course of action, but we're more or less reacting. In a sense, we don't know what the hell we're doing. I think when Jesus was on the cross, he had the opportunity to scorn as much as he wanted, right? I'm an innocent man, and I'm about to die. And he had every reason to shout out from moral authority on the people. But you know what his prayer was? God, they don't know what the hell they're doing. And they didn't. And we don't at times. Oh, that we would give so much grace to others that we would wish for ourselves. And we remember that every step of our journey, as God has been whispering shalom into our ears, as God has been hoping that all of humanity will march toward this vision of, can we just get along? Can we take care of the planet and each other in meaningful, beautiful ways? As that has been the clarion call all of our lives and for eternity, we have been the ones to kick down the sandcastle. We have been the ones to get in the way of that. And at every instance, God's whisper in our ear is, come back to shalom. I want you to be well. I want you to be healed of whatever caused you to do this thing. This is the invitation our whole lives. What dreams are you nursing? Those of vengeance and revenge, or those of healing and well-being? What dreams are you nursing? Let's pray together. Spirit of God, be our guide right now. Crosswalkers, what dreams are you nursing? What have I brought to your attention today? Or better said, how has the Spirit of God brought to attention things that maybe you did not want to see or deal with today? Are there any dreams that you've been nursing that may need to change? Are there people in your past and your present that have caused you harm that your dream has been their ill will, bad things happening, that they would get theirs? Can we see it for what it is? Maybe rational, maybe justified, but can we see it for what it is? Not shalom. God, give us the vision, the imagination to perhaps begin the process of dreaming shalom for all those villains in our life. It is a process, God. We will not solve it today. We will not be free in this moment of all the burdens we've been carrying, all the anger and the hatred, so much justified. But God, you are about healing. And we're killing ourselves. We are drinking the rat poison, expecting the others to die. And you're inviting us to something different. Help us remember how you have always been with us, always wanting well-being, holistic health, peace, joy, love, grace. May we begin to have eyes. May we begin to have dreams of the same. Help us in our nursing. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. All right, on that happy note, have a great week. And if any of you in your nursing experiment, trying to nurse a bigger vision, need to borrow my outfit to help that along, I'm happy to loan them to you for a small fee. All right, thanks for coming. We'll see you next week. Happy Memorial Day.